what you want me to do. Maybe somebody's in there that wants to hear about the Lord, and I'll do the best I can. Well, I went to the local board, and they was all acting like they knew me. Sounded like Herbert Hunter had been talking to all them secretaries up there. They act like and when Doyle went out to register, he said, "Is your brother named Buryl?" "Yeah." So he don't want to go to the army, does he? But I didn't claim to be no conscientious objector. I didn't object to war, because I talked to Brother Lynch back then, the pastor of the Pentecostal Church of God. He said, "Don't be an objector to war. If you can go and serve as a medic, there's other things you can do instead of take up arms." I said, don't. So I didn't do it. But when I got up there to take my final test, and the sergeant passed his book, the papers, that kept looking at me. Looked like he knew me. That's what he's eyeing me all the time. And when I got mine, I looked around, he was looking ahead at me. He kept looking. When I got up there, I looked at them papers, and the local board had said, well, the doctor had told them that I had epilepsy, grand mal, epilepsy fits, and it wasn't no cure for me. But that has been falling out. I don't know if the doctor just told that to keep me going to the army, but I did fall out and have some terrible fits or whatever it was, and I guess I did have it. But I didn't tell them up to the local board that the Lord had healed me. That wasn't no time for me to give my testimony. I was so tickled when I got that final doctor. I got that 21 doctors I went through. They really give me examination. One of them said,
only time he never gave his
well,
testimony.
the local board said, though, that that doctor, it was rumored that that Dr. Wilson here, he was not a good doctor. I said he's got MD by the side of it, said, don't he? What they're supposed to mean, I didn't even know, but that's what came out. So I was going to argue with him, and the sergeant told me he was going out, they take care of it. Well, I walked out, and forgot my suitcase.
Oh.
And they come to the door and said, "Dacus, you can go now." I got from outside the building without my suitcase. And I remembered, boy, I hate to go back in there. I was afraid they'd change their mind. I'm not going on with my suitcase because it wasn't my city anyway. I got back over there and I stayed with Sam Bluber while I was taking an examination. I could walk from 8th and State Street where that was at, I come back over there and I told Sister Lorraine, and they turned me down and both the shouting started. She cried, and they just cried and prayed. And I think it was Jerry Haney. They was praying for me not to have to go. And when Uncle Harold Haney had to go, well, Jerry told his mama she would pray for him and his brother Buryl, he would have gone. Amen. Thank you, Lord.
Page 2.
When Dad asked him, this farmer, could we go out on the highway? He said, we're trying to get kids off the streets and get them off of, wasn't much dope back then to know of, but drinking and doing smoking and chewing and dicking, that was all we preached against that. And he said, we're trying to, I'm using my house to have prayer meeting. He said, I need a little more lunatic. So we had a shotgun house right down the road to Jen. I wish it was still standing there. I'd like to get some pictures of it. I wish we made pictures of it back then. And Mr. Hunter said, you have to have a church in. And Daddy said, well, could we take a petition out and make a bigger room out of it? And he said, yeah. So Sister Lawrence was in our home. She sent us to the woods to cut some blocks. About told us how big to make them. Don't matter what they are, willow or cottonwood, that'd be easier to cut than oak, And I think it was willow and cottonwood. And we got blocks and then boards that reached from the top to the bottom, which was probably 8 or 10 foot wide long. We nailed in boards on top of them blocks. That was our first pews. And our first altar was a block here, a block there, and a board nailed there. But we didn't put a white sheet over the altar. And I guess about 17 people got the Holy Ghost in that little old place there. I'm telling you, one night, there were so many people coming to the altar, there's all the way the altar's full, and I only had one little aisle down the side. because the little pews we had took up the rest of the space, and they're right behind each other, come outside the door. Man, we was having a revival. Woo, hallelujah. And anyway, it just kept growing, kept getting bigger.